Welcome back to First Down Fridays. I'm your co-host, Tucker Moore, joined by Johnny Felder, my co-host. And guys, we're back with just another week of college football coverage for you guys. And we're going to start out, as usual, recapping our predictions from last week. And Johnny, I believe you went 4-1 with your predictions.
I actually did.
I went 3-2 in mine. Not a terrible week.
Not bad.
I will say I did get a little hasty on some of my picks. Starting out, one of those being Georgia versus Mississippi State.
It's so, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's so crazy when you really just watch the game. Because I was at the Newberry game watching it, and Mississippi State was just getting blown out the water. And, it got to the point where I was watching, I was so invested in the game, I just turned it off at halftime. It's that type of game.
Yeah, that was an upset that I did predict and obviously got that wrong. I emphasized that it was my gut feeling they're going to win. Well, after that one, I might need some Pepto-Bismol because my guts must be just messed up.
Bubble guts.
Yeah, it wasn't even close. I just based on how Mississippi State has been playing this year, they've kept it close with virtually everybody while being the underdog. And this week, you just didn't see it. And, that's just kind of the way the ball rolls sometimes.
Yeah.
Just Georgia was just the better team.
Don't worry, though. Do not worry, though, because there's a team next week that will fix all of that.
And we'll get into that in our later segment. But moving on, I want to get into BYU and Texas Tech.
Oh, man.
Now I did predict Texas Tech. I believe you predicted BYU, right?
I had predicted Texas Tech to win this one. I actually had watched that game with this one. See, my thing is with this game here, Texas Tech offense had kind of struggled this game. The only way they could find really open stuff on offense was literally just chucking the ball down the field or just giving it to Cameron Dickey or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, he's been cutting up all season long, but this game right here really just solidifies it. And also on BYU, and their defense really just had played phenomenal overall, keeping Baron Morton under pressure and just sacking him either 6 or 5 times in the game, I believe so. But other than that, though, I really had liked the game pretty much for me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it might be a little bit more of a high-scoring affair.
Me too.
Texas Tech won 29-7. Their defense played outstanding.
Yeah.
Their linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, is just an outstanding player. He kind of anchors that defense, leads that defense, and they shut BYU down in a way I didn't think they would. So, moving on, I want to get into probably the game of the week, definitely the game of the week, maybe even game of the year. Indiana versus Penn State. This was a crazy one right down to the finish. And I did predict Indiana, but I felt that this one was going to be a really good game. And we saw that, with Indiana winning 27-24 with a last second insane catch to end the game. What an insanely fun game to watch. Penn State fought like I knew they would. Like I said, in a game like this, a team as down and out as Penn State has been, they're going to be, like I've said before, aggressive, hungry. They want to go out and get that big upset. And they just so happen to be one of the more talented teams on paper across the country. So it didn't shock me to see that this was such a good game, but I do think it's a testament to Indiana and Kurt Cignetti. Just, staying resilient and not dropping a game like this, which, some would consider it at this point a trap game.
Right.
Because this is one, this was a preseason top 5 Penn State team. They're now, they've fallen far, from that. And, despite that, they're still a very talented team. So, this is one that they could have easily went out and lost, but they really stood their ground and went out and got a win. So,
only really thing that really impressed me about the game was just 2 words: Fernando Mendoza. The reason why is just because the way that he came back in the clutch pretty much against Penn State, and they literally almost lost. I watched the game a little bit myself. In the last few moments of the game, he really came clutch for his team. It's like that Tyrese Halliburton type of feel. Like, you always got to carry your team on your back end. For that, Fernando Mendoza is like Tyrese Halliburton in a way. He always just got to carry his team on his back no matter what. Yeah,
what a great offseason acquisition that was for Indiana. I don't think anybody would have predicted he'd have the year that he's having. But moving on to Texas A&M and Missouri, I believe we both predicted Texas A&M to win this one. They did rather comfortably. It was a little close in the beginning. They ultimately pulled away 38-17 in this one. And I just think overall there's too much they have. They have going on for them.
Way too much.
Yeah, I mean, just offensively, of course, defensively. I just think they're just much more talented across the board than Missouri.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, bro. To keep it a stack with you, is it too early, to give predictions about who the early champions are going to be? I really feel like Texas A&M really has that dog in them, and they've been waiting for a long time. Just overall, their offense just really just flows with me. I really just like watching their game, especially Casey Concepcion. I ain't care what nobody says. I got the Aggies going all the way. I don't care. Give me Concepcion, Reception, Catchion, the Aggies in 5. Give me the Aggies in 5 early,
I like
please.
that. I like that. Yeah, man. I mean, they've most certainly beat the 8-4 allegations. What a great job Coach Mike Elko has done.
Right.
They at this point, I think all year we've been kind of waiting on them to have that fall off that they inevitably usually have.
Right.
But no, they're looking just incredible throughout this, and as long as they finish out strong and don't drop a game versus South Carolina this coming week, I think they're sitting in good position. But we'll get into that in a moment. But moving on to our last game we predicted, LSU and Alabama. Now, this was the other game I got a little too happy about, a little too, out there on. I did predict LSU, but despite that, I mean, it wasn't what most people thought it would be. They only won 20-9. Wasn't that impressed with what Alabama went out there and did. Obviously, wasn't very impressed with LSU's offense, but their defense held them in check well enough to stay in the game. But ultimately, you just saw this. What's been the story of LSU this year is just a stagnant offense that can't get much going. And
right.
I mean, defense, they say defense wins championships, and yes, that's true. But, you have to have offense complementary enough to that defense to even be in the ball game. And, they don't have that, which is, in result, why they are the way they are this year.
So with this game right here, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even really watch the game. I literally just caught up with highlights. And what I just watched from the highlights was just both teams, like you said, just struggling on offense. And we even said it beforehand, even before this game, that this game could potentially be a defensive game. And we had Alabama really just riding high. And we had too much expectations for them. Yeah, they got the win and stuff, and it's cool and all that, but when you really look at the game and stuff, like you said, in the highlights and stuff, you're really not impressed with either Alabama or LSU. I mean, my God, LSU has been dealing with the same thing for the past year now. What's got to change for them?
I mean, and I want to step back a little bit and say that I'm not that I don't think Alabama is good. Obviously, just in this game specifically, I wasn't impressed. But they are still easily one of the top teams in the country. Week in and week out, it is very difficult to even win in the SEC, regardless of how lackluster LSU has looked. It's still LSU. They're still a very quality opponent. They're still loaded with talent. So regardless, going out and getting an SEC win is impressive enough. But, just some of the chinks in the armor that you see with Alabama. They are very beatable in my opinion, but they're still very talented, and still they're going out and getting close wins like this and pulling ahead, like versus South Carolina and obviously LSU now. So, still very impressed with them, and at this point they're poised to get back to the playoffs for the first time in, a year after they missed it last year. But anyways, that's going to do it for our recaps of last week's games. Next segment, we're going to get into trivia, and we'll both bring in a couple of trivia questions for each other and also for you guys to answer. So join us for trivia in a moment. Welcome back to First Down Fridays. I'm your co-host, Tucker Moore, joined by Johnny Felder, as always. And now we are going to get into our trivia segment for this week. And kind of like last week, I think we kind of opened it up to just a little bit of general trivia around college football. And we decided to bring that in again for you guys today. So it is any category. It can be schools, it can be players, stats, big upsets, scores, whatever. So we both brought in 3 questions for each other, and I'm really excited to get into this. Johnny, are you ready?
I've been ready.
Okay. So I think you started last week, so I'll start with my question.
All right.
And I'm going to go in a little bit of an order of easier to harder a little bit. So, all right. Question number 1. In 2007, an FCS team pulled off one of the most famous upsets ever by defeating number 5 Michigan in the season opener at the Big House.
That's easy. That's App State.
Yep. Okay. That's it. It's going to be a little easy start. All right.
So my question is, which unranked team pulled off the biggest upset against the top 5 opponents so far this season?
Wait, repeat that first part again.
Which unranked team pulled off the biggest upset win against the top 5 opponents so far this season?
UCLA.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said they were a ranked opponent. Okay, yeah, all right. Cool. All right. Moving on. Okay. Let's go. All right. Question number 2. Which legendary coach won a national championship both as a Heisman-winning player and as a head coach?
What?
I'll repeat myself. Which legendary coach won a national championship as a Heisman-winning player, and he won a national championship as a head coach?
Bear Bryant?
No. I'll give you 2 more guesses. This is a good one.
Yeah, it is. Lord have mercy. How far is it back?
I'll give you, it was, okay, I'll give you this hint. His Heisman and national championship as a player was in the 60s, and his coaching one was in the 90s.
Man. Who is it? Lou Holtz?
No. Shout out Lou Holtz.
Shout out Lou, man. Oh, let me see.
Okay, I'll give you a final hint. Stay on that track.
Stay on that track?
Yeah.
All right.
If you know, you know.
I don't. That's the thing. I don't. I'm gonna give a guess though. I already said Bear Bryant. I already said Lou Holtz. What other legendary coach? I give up, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Steve Spurrier.
You're lying.
No.
You gotta be lying.
No. You didn't know he won a Heisman, or?
I knew, but it was just like in the back of my head.
I
What?
know. That's not one you'd think of. Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I was debating on saving that one for last. I felt like that one was pretty challenging. But
It kind of made me think a little bit like, what?
you got to think though. There's only a very select few that have both won a Heisman and a national championship as or maybe the only one. But anyways, your second one.
All right, so here's my second one. When was the last time a number 1 ranked team lost to an unranked opponent in college football?
Last year, Alabama and Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that
I just
game.
already knew. I don't know why. I just immediately thought of that.
I ain't gonna lie. Diego Pavia was throwing the ball so much on that defense last year.
I think before we realized that Vanderbilt is actually kind of good now, that was like the biggest upset in college football history. But looking back, not so much. I mean, it's not – in hindsight, it wasn't, as big as we thought it was in the moment. But either way, all right. I feel like this is one you've probably either seen or you might just know off the top of your head. Mm-hmm. What was the final score of the highest scoring college football game ever in which Georgia Tech defeated Cumberland College in 1916?
It was like 101 something to like 79 or 78.
No.
It was in the hundreds. I remember seeing the exact score. It's like 120 to 60.
No. If you don't know it, then you're just not gonna know it.
All right, I just got one more guess. I got 99 to 23.
No. 222 to 0. You gave Cumberland a little too much credit, scoring 60. Nah, yeah, that's just, I don't even understand how, I don't even want to know how that happened.
Me personally, if I'd been the dean of the school, I wouldn't have that score anywhere.
I don't even know how there's enough time in the game to get to 222 points.
You had to put 20.
Anyways, I digress. That's a pretty famous one. Like I said, I've seen that many a times over the stretch of being a college football fan. But I figured you might would know that one.
20
Either
minutes.
way.
20
Either
minutes
way.
every time.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Get to your last one.
I ain't gonna lie. I feel like my last one is a little challenging.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you it. So which conference has had the most ranked teams suffer upsets this season?
Which conference? So since it's like not that many options, I'll just do one guess. And if I don't get it, then I don't get it. So which conference has had the most ranked teams
suffer upsets this season?
So by upset, is that any team ranked below them? I'd say the SEC.
It's the ACC.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember, at the beginning of the season, Clemson had lost to Georgia Tech and all those upsets started happening.
Clemson racked up a lot of those for the ACC, so I should have known. Okay.
I told people about the game too, and they still didn't believe me.
Oh man. Well, that's going to do it for this week's trivia, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. And next week we'll come in with our new fresh batch of trivia for you guys. But moving on, in a moment we're going to get into our predictions for this week's games. We have a lot of fun, exciting games for you guys to predict. So join us for those predictions in a moment. Welcome back to First Down Fridays. I'm your co-host, as always, Tucker Moore, joined by Johnny Felder. And now we're going to get into our predictions for this week's slate of games. Are you ready, Johnny?
I don't know. I really don't know if I don't know. Matter of fact, I am ready, actually.
Okay. Glad. Had to make sure you're ready. Starting off this week, I want to get into USC and Iowa now. Iowa coming off of a near huge upset last week versus Oregon, where they unfortunately fell short, 16-18. Just fought their butts off. We can talk about it all day. The kind of stereotype at Iowa that their quarterback play is horrible, their defense is great, and I mean they prove you right pretty much every week. with that type of play. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about them versus USC. And, you know, the way I see this game, and I'll say this, I don't think I've picked against USC this entire year. And I think it's just every matchup, I just feel that their talent just outweighs the opposition. And, you know, especially in this case, I see that happening here now. While I think their defense can give USC some trouble, I think, you know, I'll say it again, Jaden Mayava, Makai Lemon, you know, that is just a duo that's been torching defenses all year. And, you know, their defense isn't too shabby either. And I think Lincoln Riley is just such a creative play caller and schemer, and he just knows where to find holes in defenses. And, you know, ultimately I just have USC in this one.
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I have to disagree. The reason why I feel like that is because I really feel like Iowa's defense is going to cause USC some problems. While their quarterback play may not be the greatest in the world, but I really feel like their defense as a whole this game can give USC problems. Will the offense have some adversity in this game? Maybe, maybe not, but I really feel like this game will fall in Iowa's hands. I really feel like this close loss really ignited something in them this week. Their get back in blood type of week, I'll say, against another ranked opponent. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is Iowa really does not have much to lose. I mean, they're not going to the playoffs or anything like that. So I really have the Hawkeyes winning this one against the Trojans. And I'll have to say it's going to be a 21-17 type of game. And it's so crazy, though, because that's what USC has literally been scoring all season long and just keeping it close with teams. And I have it this score for this week, I'll say.
Yeah, I was about to say, I have this being like a 21-10 type of game. I don't see Iowa's offense doing enough to get the win. So that's what I'm going to leave it at. But moving on, we want to get into Clemson and Louisville. Now, Clemson is actually coming off a pretty big win over Florida State. Well, I guess at this point, I don't know if we would call it a huge win.
It's not.
You know, college football is so up and down. You know, week one, we were ready to crown Florida State as the national champions. And now, you know, look at them. Mike Norvell's probably out the door. You know, their season's just crumbled before their eyes.
He's just getting really, really hard for him every week, every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably that's what's going to happen. They're going to move on from him. But still a big win nonetheless based on the way Clemson's season has gone. And looking at this game, Louisville's had a great year. Had some big wins, like when they beat Miami.
And Virginia.
Yeah. I mean, very, very talented team. And ultimately, they've, on paper, you know, Clemson matches up with them well talent-wise. But as far as what they've done, you know, their actual resume, I don't see Clemson winning this game. You know, they've looked a little better the past few weeks, you know. Their offense looked great versus SMU, but their defense looked horrible. This past week, their offense was all right. Their defense looked great. So my question is, can they bring it all together and have a complete game and maybe get a glimpse of the old Clemson, you know, we're used to when, you know, both offense and defense simultaneously are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I haven't seen it this year, so I'm more inclined to not think that. So with that being said, I am going to take Louisville. I'll take Louisville 27, Clemson 17.
So I definitely agree with you on everything you say. You pretty much took the words out of my mouth. But one thing I really feel like Clemson has really struggled with this year, and we both said, you said it just now, their offense and defense is really just inconsistent on both sides, honestly, for me speaking. While Louisville has the better resume and everything like that as far as coming together and making things happen for their team, and while Clemson has all the talent in the world, but it's just literally just one of those things you literally have to put everything together and just mesh everything. But I really feel like this game will go in Louisville's way, and I really feel like Clemson defense will get exposed by the Cards this game. There's not much to be said. I really have the Cardinals winning this game, 27-14 type of game.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see it being a low to mid scoring affair for both teams. But moving on, I want to get into South Carolina versus Texas A&M. This is going to be a really interesting one to see. Not for most people, for me, because I'm a South Carolina fan, but coming off of a bye week and also, a bye week in which they have a new offensive coordinator, interim offensive coordinator after they fired Mike Shula, coach Mike Furry, former D2 Limestone University head coach. He's taken over the play calling for this game, and either way, just, excited to see what this offense looks like, what they can do. Now, ideally, do you want to be rolling out a new offensive game plan versus the number 2 team in the country? No. But it's at this point, South Carolina doesn't really have much to lose. Yeah. And I think what they want to do is at least just go out and put on a good show for their fans and, stuff like that. So, ultimately, I'm looking on the Texas A&M side, now they don't need to get, ahead of themselves. Everybody knows this is the SEC. You're liable to drop a goose egg any week and lose to a lesser opponent. And I mean, the transitive property isn't always applied, but last year, you look, South Carolina kind of blew them out of the water. At least the final score indicator. It was close throughout, but this is a game in which South Carolina really laid it down on them last year. Albeit this is a different team this year, so they just need to stay vigilant, make sure they're not slacking on any of their assignments or anything like that. And I think they can go out and get a relatively smooth victory versus South Carolina. So I do have Texas A&M. I'll say 35-17. I think, and that's being generous on their offense. Maybe they can throw a few new looks in there and maybe get an extra field goal or two.
I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Like I said earlier in the episode, Concepcion, Recepcion, Conchifion, give me the Aggies in 5. For this game alone, I got Texas A&M winning. But however, though, don't sleep on South Carolina because there's been times in the season where they could have potentially upset top 10 teams, and that team I'm talking about is Alabama. Could they have the upset of the year this weekend? I don't know, me personally, but I really feel like Texas A&M will come in and get a smooth win. The same score you said, 35-17. But like I said, though, I wouldn't put it past South Carolina if they potentially got an upset. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I surely don't expect it, but I've seen crazier things happen. So really excited, though. It's going to be a different look that we're seeing from South Carolina. So really excited to see that one. But moving on, I want to get into Oklahoma versus Alabama. Now, this is a really interesting one right here. We got a almost top 10 matchup here. Oklahoma being number 11, Alabama being number 4. And, really excited for this one. I mean, this Alabama team, they've been kind of teetering on the edge of dropping a very important game. And, coming into this one, they can't have that, they can't come into this one, being lackadaisical or anything of the sort, versus a great team like Oklahoma is. And I think what stands out to me is Oklahoma's defense. Per usual, I rant and rave about their defense. I have all season long. They're just so talented. They're so versatile. They just fly around the field. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to do a lot to confuse and pressure Ty Simpson, which he's been incredible this year. Arguably the best quarterback this year, many people might argue. But you know, on the offensive side, you know how I love to talk about John Mateer. I just think he's so versatile, just like the defense. He's explosive. He can make every play on the field. You know, just looking to really see how this offensive line protects him and allows him to read the field and get the ball downfield. You know, and can they establish a decent run game? Their run game hasn't been all that great this year, but can they do that? And if they can do those things offensively, I think their defense can take care of Alabama. And ultimately, I do have the upset. I do have Oklahoma winning this one. I think it's going to be a really good game regardless. I think it'll be 20-20 very late in the game, and I think Oklahoma kicks a field goal and wins 23-20. So that's my in-depth prediction. My gut speaking, telling me that.
You going in depth in it with it. Oh man, with the field goal.
Yeah.
But nah, though, I really like Oklahoma's defense. Like you said, we've really been talking about Oklahoma's defense all year long, and they're no slouch whenever it comes to playing top 10 teams. I mean, like, you got an opponent like Alabama. You're hype essentially, pretty much, and I really feel like Oklahoma is really going to be riding high, not only just because it's an SEC game, but this game alone is a big playoff implication game. So there will be a winner and a loser. But unfortunately, Alabama will be that loser in this game. As I got Oklahoma winning this game, I'll have to give it 27-21 type of game. Like I said, though, I really like their defense, and I really feel like they're going to give Ty Simpson and Jeremy Bernard and whoever Alabama has on that offense a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like John Mateer in the offense is going to come together. But will it happen the way you said it in the fourth quarter? I don't know. But we will see. We shall see.
Yeah, we will see. Either way, really excited for that one. I know it's going to be a great game. But moving into our final game of the week, we have Texas versus Georgia. I'll let you kick this one off. What are you looking for in this game?
All right, so I'm going to be real with y'all, and I'm going to tell y'all what I'm really going to look for in this game. Can Arch Manning be consistent? My thing is with this whole offense, can they really have consistency on offense? Can Arch Manning complete his passes down the field to his receivers? Can he have an effective offensive lineman that can block the Bulldogs on defense? Because, I mean, let's give credit where it's due. Georgia's defense is actually tough. They actually been pretty tough this season, so it's really just one of those things. Can Arch overcome Georgia's defense pretty much to win the game for the Longhorns? And as for Georgia on their side, there's not much to be said about them because Texas defense has been giving teams really big problems this season. And I really feel like it is not going to be no difference from here. I mean, I really feel like they should take this game very serious just because it's also another big playoff implication game. But as long as they can do what I say will think will happen, I really feel like the Longhorns should win this game. And I'll have to give it like a 27-21 type of game. I'm not going to be riding too high on the Bulldogs this week just because I'm really riding high on the Longhorns getting the upset.
Yeah. The way I feel about this game, a lot of your points you made I agree with.
Yeah.
I think ultimately these are two defensive-minded teams. These are two elite defenses. Ultimately, I kind of see this game playing out much like how that first game of the year to open the year, Texas and Ohio State ended up being 7-14. I could very much so see this game
being like
taking that route. Ultimately, I just think Texas has been far too inconsistent all year round offensively. Mm-hmm. They haven't impressed me. Arch hasn't impressed me. While they've gotten a little bit better as the season's gone on, I'm still not uber confident in their ability to go out and score points. And this Georgia team, I mean, they've looked great. all year. They've gotten some big wins. They've, their offense has put the team on their back when it's needed to. Their defense has done the same. And, you look at last year, Georgia owned Texas. Their two matchups, they played them twice head-to-head and beat them both times, almost playing a third time. And, who would know what would have happened there? Right. I could make a guess. But, looking at this game, obviously those are two different teams last year. It's not the same year.
Right.
But ultimately, it seems like Kirby Smart has Texas's number. And, looking at this game, I don't see it being any different. It helps that I also just think that they're the better team. So I do have Georgia winning. I could see it being a 17-10 type of game, but that's what I'm going to predict. But that's going to do it for this week's predictions. Moving on, we want to get into Newberry's huge game this past weekend, which ultimately catapulted them to a SAC title. But we'll get into that in a moment. Welcome back to First Down Fridays. I'm your co-host, Tucker Moore, joined by Johnny Felder. And to close out the show this week, we want to get into our weekly update on Newberry football. And Johnny, what a game we had this past weekend, and what a season for the Wolves as they close out the year 9-1, finishing with a win over Carson Newman, 28-21. And winning the SAC title for the third time in the past 5 years.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What a crazy year after, a bounce back year after going 3-7 last year.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but they got it together, and just such a fun season. What more can you say?
There's really nothing more you can really say. You're winning the SAC championship out of the 3 out of 5 years you play. That says a lot. Pretty much Newberry really runs the SAC per se. I'll say that not only did they get their great win off of Carson Newman, but they're getting a chance to be in the automatic bid for the NCAA Division II playoffs. So a whole lot is still up in the air for Newberry and all these other teams right now. It's a really confusing thing right now in D2, but they have the automatic bid. But I really feel like Newberry will continue to ride high, especially after this win. And I really feel like they're going to be hungry just to get this national championship. I got my Wolves going all the way.
Yeah, I sure hope so. But regardless, we are excited to see how they finish out this year, this historic year for them. Mm-hmm. And I just know Todd Knight's going to have them boys ready. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of First Down Fridays. And just to let you guys know that our next show next week will be our last show of the semester, unfortunately, as we go on about our lives and live them well. But either way, we'll get into more about that next week. But join us next week because I think we might bring in a few special elements for it being our last show. So really excited to get into that. But thank you guys for watching. And join us next week for more First Down Fridays. All right. Beautiful. I think that was very good.
Yeah.